Oh, oh, what year is it? Who's president? Don? Don? Oh, God. Oh, Don! Oh, thank God. After the events of last episode, I wasn't sure you'd be able to make it. It was such a fiasco.
It happened. We're here. We're live.
Yeah.
Welcome to the next week of Reviving Discourse. This is episode 6, and I need to change the title of the video. How have you been, Alex?
I've been pretty well. I've been holding up okay. I went through a transdimensional portal just a moment ago. Interestingly, landed right where I was supposed to on time for the podcast.
I was wrong. This is episode 5. Welcome back. I'm glad you made it through your transdimensional portal.
Are we episode 5 or episodes?
Let's see. Reviving Discourse. Okay, so I just uploaded episode 5, actually. So this must be episode 6. I was totally wrong.
Must be. Yeah. Look at that.
6 weeks.
Our award's in the mail.
It'll be here, I'm sure. All right. So topics of discussion this week. First, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Thank you for coming to watch our stream.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys.
Thank you for participating in the chat. And for those of you who only catch the VOD on YouTube, thank you too. Leave a comment, like, subscribe.
Yeah, that's important.
Those of you on Twitch, leave us a follow. Okay. So, Alex, what's on your mind?
Well, I'm just really concerned. You remember Eric Gardner?
No.
African American man got killed selling kind of illegally. He was illegally selling cigarettes on the street corner.
Okay.
Cigarettes and CDs or something. The policeman took him down with a chokehold that eventually killed him.
Yes, I remember.
That was in 2014. That was 6 years ago.
Yes, 5.
And
almost 6.
5 years ago. Excuse me. Yeah, and I round up every time. My point being is that I heard about this again on the radio when I was driving the other day. Well, I heard about that it had happened that long ago, and I was just shocked. I was flabbergasted. I thought that for sure 6 years after that we'd see some type of tangible in our relationship with the police as a country, and I'm not sure that we have. Do you think that there is improvement to be had even, or do you think that there's any improvement needed?
Like in cultural relationships with police officers?
Yeah, like how we as a culture interact with police and how they interact with us. It appears, according to very high profile cases that we've seen around the US, to be getting citizens killed. And most people, whether or not they agree with the person getting charged for something for what they did, they seem to agree that the person getting the death sentence without a judge or a jury is bad.
So the question is always just, in situations like that may or may not be life or death, whose life is more important at that point? The potential aggressor or the police officer?
Well, is that a hypothetical or a rhetorical?
It's hypothetical.
I meant rhetorical. I'm sorry.
It's not rhetorical. I'm looking for a hypothetical answer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, hypothetically, I would say that the person, we are trained in our culture, and this is part of what I get.
I'm going to cut you off real quick. Greetings, Romwind, you glorious king. Welcome back.
What's up, Kangaskhan?
Kangaskhan.
I don't know.
Remember King posting? I educated you on that a few weeks ago. Yeah.
He's doing King posting.
He's calling you. He's calling us kings. Yes.
All right.
Sorry. Sorry, Alex. It's a little bit of a boomer.
I'm a little bit of a boomer. I don't know much about the King posting, but I thought that was really interesting when you told me about it at work. I would love to hear your actual thoughts on it as a movement.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Is that what I could say?
I mean,
should we launch into that?
Well,
it's something.
Continue with what you were saying before I graciously interrupted you.
Yeah, thank you, King. So I was saying that the police or the bad guy. Who's the bad guy? Great question, right? Yes. Unfortunately, not so much, because in the eyes of the majority of people that I've actually engaged with discussion about this, they'll at first become condescending to me and then become aggressive to me if I indicate that the other person's life might be equal to or greater than the life of the policeman. Because we as a culture have been trained to attribute traits to policemen that they probably don't actually exist in their course of action, especially if they've had a situation like this where they gain national attention for unnecessary force. I think that most people would say the policeman has the benefit of the doubt, but I disagree because he's the only one that gets to speak at the trial. If he kills the other person, they're already dead. They can't defend themselves. They don't get a lawyer. He's taken away several rights of theirs.
I think that all this can be taken away with modern technology, specifically body cams. Like, maybe in the event of a body cam malfunction, quote unquote, then the police officer does not get the benefit of the doubt in legal proceedings. But otherwise, just have a body cam on at all times, right? And then there's nothing. There's always the proof of what's happening, right?
Yeah, but there are situations you've seen body cam footage, or at least I've seen body cam footage of people, for example, with screwdriver getting shot to death by police.
I don't know what that is.
A screwdriver? It's a little tool.
Yes, I know what it's. What? I don't understand the context.
Oh, well, I would say that that person could have been handled better if our police training was different. But at the same time, that's putting their life at risk, right? Because you can get got with a screwdriver.
Okay, so I'm now educated since I typed it in Google, and I've known about this for 7 seconds now. So a woman stabbed another person in the head with a screwdriver. That's what you're talking about?
No, that mine's a video of a guy.
Well, okay, that
on
makes
his
sense.
porch at his mom's house.
Because this happened a day ago. So
really?
Yes, apparently a woman who stabbed someone in the head with a screwdriver has been arrested a day ago.
Oh, and they didn't have to kill her.
Well, I don't think she was a danger at that point. They just kind of stopped her. Anyway, why did you say screwdriver? What are you talking about?
Because there's a video that was just the first of many videos that I've seen where a person's armed with a knot gun.
Oh.
And then they get gunned to death.
So they came at him with a screwdriver?
Yeah, or he was just holding one and he moved like he was coming toward him. And we'll never know if he was or not because now he's gone forever.
You just hit me with inspiration real quick. Let me say this. Okay, so think of this. Okay, so you have 3 Nerf guns, right? 2 of them are non-lethal, one of them being a taser, and the other one being like a some sort of stun gun. So one is you have to touch them with it. The other one you can aim and shoot. And then the third one is your live firearm. So you could be put in multiple different situations where you don't know the full story. You're a police officer, and then there's someone who may or may not run up and stab you. And like to put you in the spot where you have to make this decision. And the other person that would be a great like real life role play to get people to think about how police are in that situation, right? That'd be cool.
Absolutely. That would be great if we had civilian training courses for how to interact with police officers and explain how policemen are, because policemen are trained a very specific way from what I've studied. This is kind of a close issue to me, so I've seen a little bit. From what I remember, it's pretty much unanimous across all 50 states that if you've started engaging in a firefight with a bag or like a perp and the thing that's threatening you is still in their hands physically, you don't ever stop. You never stop shooting.
Right.
And that is for a really specific purpose, because that's how people with 3 bullets in them kill people all the time.
Yeah.
So
you guns, 9mm rounds do not stop you. The only time you'll be stopped is when you can't use your body anymore.
That's the thing. It's a really archaic idea, isn't it? That to put as many holes in them as you can.
You have to stop them. If you've ever, you know how if you play a video game, right, your character can absorb like 700 bullets or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Bullets don't really stop you. the bullets put holes in you to make it so you can't live anymore. That's what they're supposed to do.
Not live necessarily, but just stop you from moving.
Yeah, well,
that's all
sure,
they care. If you're talking about go ahead.
Weapons with larger calibers. Those are the ones that you get hit with them, and then you like get thrown back. If a lot of times, if you're shot with a lower caliber weapon, like a 22 or even a 9mm, you don't even know you're hit. And depending on when you get hit, you kind of look down later and you're like, oh, that's a lot of blood, and then you pass out.
Yeah.
So it's hard. There's not very much, because we need something that'll make the other person stop without putting us in danger, right?
Yeah. You don't.
Yeah. And for 300 years, that's been a weapon. That's been a gun, I should say.
Yeah.
Or a rifle.
For sure. That's the best. We have it down to a science. If you want someone to stop moving, dead is how we make them stop moving. I think that we have enough. I think that if we stopped thinking of our us versus them mentality where we're on the side of the police, and we think of it as more of a that's happening to people that may or may not be innocent because they haven't had the chance to go to, then we would be willing to study and put more money into non-lethal weaponry. But there's this idea that I'm pretty sure some big corporation is probably pushing because it's that famous that force is always necessary, and that the policeman's life is more important than the person that may or may not be innocent. And in order to go ahead,
I'll disagree with what you're saying. I think there's a huge open market that isn't being worked on that is non-lethal. So I think if there was a non-lethal method, a company would jump on that and start making it and sell it to every police department and make millions very quickly. If there was a legitimate way to stop someone with minimal collateral damage that is effective towards both stopping them and keeping the person using it safe.
So you think that the technology is impossible, or that it just doesn't exist yet?
It doesn't exist yet.
Okay, so then if we were to develop and devote more of our time and money to trying to figure out how to do that, don't you think we could come up with something like a I don't know. You remember when Harambe the gorilla was killed, gunned down? May he rest in peace.
Yes.
A lot of people. This is just it was really funny to me because everyone was upset with the zoo and how they handled it, because they killed him obviously instead of like trying to trank him or something.
Right.
But tranquilizer guns are actually a myth in the way that you think about them, because if you put enough in them to make them fall asleep right away, that they're more than likely going to die.
Yeah,
they're going to die, and if you don't, you'll just piss them off. Have you ever talked to someone who's on tranquilizers? They're not very good. So that girl would definitely have got destroyed if they tried to trank the gorilla. But what if there's? I know it's crazy science fiction, but what if we spent like a millionth of the defense budget on something that was just devoted to making real Spider-Man cannons?
We couldn't even go 15 minutes without you whining about the defense budget, could we?
I know the defense budget. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So you want public funded research into finding a perfect non-lethal alternative to firearms?
I think that a lot of people across the country would agree with me. Yeah. And I think that if you haven't been impacted like violence on the part of police, then you don't really put two and two together that that's necessary. And I think that it's going to continue to not happen until white people specifically, are impacted by police violence. Because
let me give you all the criteria that we would need for such a weapon. We would need one, it doesn't affect people who aren't involved, but maybe nearby. So, for instance, if you shoot a pistol, you miss your target or go through your target into or through a glass pane and into the neck of someone cooking in their kitchen.
Yeah,
you can't have that. That's number one.
Right.
Number two, is it has to immobilize or otherwise completely indispose of your target without putting the user, in this case the police officer, in any danger. For instance, you can't point it at them and then it take 5 seconds to work, because by that time there's 3 rounds in the police officer's face. So it has to be very quick.
Yeah.
Number 3, it has to be consistently effective. It can't mess up ever, because if it does, that police officer's dead. And then number 4, it can't kill the target or otherwise permanently injure the target.
I would take permanently injured.
Over dead, sure.
Yeah, I would take that all day. Let me go to court, please. Go ahead, make the Spinomatic 5000 that just shatters my spine. I'll be a vegetable talking smack on the thing. At least I can defend myself. That's what. Okay, so back to your weapon criteria. Taser meets a couple of them.
Right.
It doesn't
Taser
meet
meets
a couple.
most of them.
It's not effective 100% of the time.
Right.
And it can kill the target.
Yes.
But it has more stopping power, like you mentioned, than a 22, a 9mm. If you actually use it effectively, it's like the condom of force. If you use it effectively, it's 98% effective. But there's a lot of guys who are just slapping it on. You know,
they don't know what they're doing. Yeah.
Don't know what they're doing.
Well, sure. I'll agree with that analogy. There's an idea to attach a large metal ball bearing to the end of a service pistol to give the necessary stopping power to a 9mm. And it's less than... So, a large metal ball bearing... You mean to the end of a round of the pistol? To the end of a 9mm round? That seems like it would just, like, spin over itself after you shoot it.
I think he's talking about...
The end of the barrel?
So the bullet hits the thing on the end and pushes that for the first shot. It's kind of like how you put buckshot. Correct me if I'm wrong here.
Oh,
you
so
put buckshot in the first round, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you're saying like your first shot is a blank with a ball bearing at the end of your barrel. Is what you're saying? Is that correct? Because that's cool if works. It's like a metal beanbag. Well, okay.
It's a metal beanbag. Yeah, I've seen beanbags. I've seen beanbags work really well. I've also seen them kill the target, and I've also seen them kill service stuff. I remember one time.
They hurt a lot. And
that'll hurt real bad. Yeah. But, I mean, I'll take it. Again.
I want to make this workshop happen. I mean, we just need people and $15 to buy the Nerf weapons, right?
Yeah.
I want to make this happen. We could totally record it and put it on YouTube for this. That'd be awesome, right?
You talking about like us just brainstorming a non-lethal weapon?
No. Us. Do you remember the workshop I was just talking about?
Yeah, I was trying to elaborate.
And we would pretend to have 2 separate non-lethal weapons and a real live firearm, and it's up to you as the mock police officer to figure out which one to use in given situations.
This is what I was talking about when I mentioned the training they're doing in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Chicago is historically one of the most police brutality ridden locations you can be. And they have now instituted training where it's live action, just like you were talking about. And they'll have a person that's just acting weird, and then they'll have one person that just turns around and immediately pulls a gun on you, and you have to
figure out which one it is.
Yeah, you have to figure out which one it is in real time. Yeah, which is, I mean, that's small, but it's great. Imagine if that was statewide. I bet we could cut the numbers down to half with just a little bit of practice.
But will it result in more police deaths?
See, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. There's only death allowed on one side.
Yes.
That's what I don't like. Whenever I hear anything like that that's kind of rings true to that rhetoric, it makes me ask questions. Like, are we the people on the wrong side of history in history?
Giving someone that much power is really hard on both ends. It's hard to wield that much power effectively, and it's hard to be around someone with that much power. Mm-hmm.
And think about this. I was thinking about this in the hospital when child was born. Nurses, they are there to keep you alive, and they have bad days, Don. Nurses have days where they aren't feeling it. Nurses wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Nurses have a weird stomach. Imagine that with police officers. Like, if they're having a bad day, that's so horrifying to think about, that we have people doing this job and that they have all the variables affecting them that affect all of us. I can't say enough about the police officers that are brave in the line of duty and that are truly trying their best to preserve the peace.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this. Oh, I wanted to call it a vocal minority. It's not a vocal minority. It's a bad apple in the bunch, I guess.
Absolutely.
But the point of that phrase, I'm just stealing it from John Oliver. Might as well. I already started it. A bad apple spoils the bunch is the phrase, right? So if you have one person that's getting away with that type of thing or abusing their power, they're like, it's so rare. Cancer is pretty rare until it overtakes your whole body. You know, it usually starts small. I got a little extreme there. I'm sorry.
No, the extreme's fine. That was a good analogy, I think.
I just worry.
Compare the job of a police officer to a McDonald's worker. They're both human beings. They're both people who know a certain amount of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the McDonald's worker who messes up your burger, the police officer might be as mess up on choosing whether or not, for thinking it's a good shot or not.
Yeah. Or legitimately grab the wrong thing, which we've seen happen.
People make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in specific situations like these, there's going to be people who die that should not have. So the alternative is either disarm the police, like they have in some places in UK, or find better non-lethal alternatives.
Yeah, I used to be a big guy for disarming the police back in the day when I was really like vocal about not liking the way the police were treated. And I learned after a lot of studying that's impossible in America because we have the Second Amendment, which is something they don't have in the UK. Everybody is allowed to have a gun on them all the time in America.
Yes.
More and more so in other southern states like Texas and Oklahoma, I think. We have pretty good. I saw a guy open carrying here just the other day. It was pretty. I was like, get a badge or something, you know, put in 48 hours at a practice or something to show that it's going to be okay if you start shooting at people. But
if they put in practice, that means they're better at shooting you.
That's true. That's really good. You told me to watch the Dave Chappelle.
Have you seen it?
The newest one. I did. I just recently watched it, and there was a funny joke about how they're doing school shooter training in school, and he points out that the school shooters in the classroom right then getting the shooter training, which kind of I disagree with how it feeds into this cultural idea that the shooter is just a person that one day no, the opposite. I'm so like the person that's in a school shooting situation is not the same kid that was sitting in a classroom 48 hours ago. You know what I mean? Like something you aren't a school shooter until you pulled the trigger, I think.
Sure.
Right.
Like, you could. So
I'm not. These people aren't plotting, right? For the most part, unless there's a political motivation or something like really gritty behind what they're doing, they aren't plotting.
Columbine they were planning it for months.
They really were.
Yeah.
And that was the most famous that started. So
you don't
hell with me.
School shooting. They don't just break into their parents' safe and then just go one morning. That you think about it for a long time because you're always sitting in the corner getting made fun of and probably physically abused by your classmates and thinking, you know what, I could take care of this every single day. At some point they say, why not? And then I don't know if it's all, But most of the victims of the Columbine shootings were the popular kids. The ones who you think are the ones who would be making fun of the outcasts, right?
I'll give you that. Yeah. During that time frame, yeah. Go ahead.
So it's more of a cultural thing in schools. It's all cultural. Everything that happens wrong is all in our civilization. Every crime that somebody does is because of some sort of cultural basis. In the case of school shootings, it's a child who finds that they want to hurt other people because other people hurt them, which is a terrible thing. You definitely shouldn't hurt other people because other people hurt you, but that's what they think they need to do.
I would argue that I don't think that it's as coherent for a person that makes the decision to do something violent to their. I don't think it's that actually gives a little bit more credence and respectability to what they're doing, right? Because it at least establishes a cause and effect relation. These people were mean to me, therefore I'm going to come back and hurt them. I think that the majority of school shooters don't have that coherent of a thought process in place because of how degraded their reasoning has become.
You think maybe because they're so picked on and hurt by other people that in and of itself has diminished their own mental reasoning?
Well, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Do these people have problems with reasoning in their brains that cause other people in their social circle to point them out and make fun?
It takes a specific mindset to take that violent route. Yes, I agree with that.
I would argue that mindset is itself a mental illness.
Sure.
I think.
I would say so. I also think that mindset is entirely alleviated by having a good support
sphere
system.
Of influence.
Support system, I would say more so.
Yeah.
So you've never heard of a school shooter that was a letterman, right? You've never heard of a school shooter who was a popular person in cheerleading or anything like that. Someone who was doing good in school doesn't pick up the weapon.
That I don't have enough. I agree with you with a knee-jerk reaction. I'm sure there's exceptions that probably only prove the rule. So I agree with you. Yeah, it's mostly people that are getting trodden upon by the society that they don't have a choice to be in. Yep. This takes me back to the Dave Chappelle show again. He said, just skip school. Have you tried skipping school?
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, I hate that feeling that there's people that think there's no way out, and they think that literally everyone around them is evil. But there's a different. I don't know why this distinction is important to me. But if you're a person that thinks the entire world is out to get you, then that's one thing. If you're a person that thinks the entire world is out to get you and the only way to take them down is with violence, that, let's face it, most of these kids don't have any sphere of reference for violence. They don't understand the concept of how many lives they're impacting every time they shoot one of these classmates of theirs. Sure. You know, they can't comprehend how badly they're hurting the entire community where they live forever. I think that giving them that calculating, they're listening to the drill, so they're just getting more notes. I think that actually worse.
What?
I think that giving them that amount of, like, if you give them this benefit of the doubt that they've been plotting it for years or weeks or months, that's like giving them this cold, calculated, that means that they know what they're doing. And I don't think a lot of these people really know what they're doing. I think they've been so disconnected from reality as a coping mechanism that it doesn't feel real to them. And that's the only reason they can do that.
I don't think understanding the negative impacts and also not planning for what you're going to do in this situation, I don't think those are necessarily related at all. I think you could plan to do something horrible, but also not think about the side effects at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah?
You got me. Yeah, that's definitely true. I just doesn't sit. I just feel bad for them sometimes, and I don't want to give them this like there's a crazy that's like Doctor Evil crazy. He just wants to blow up the world. He doesn't care. There's no end goal, but he is doing that on purpose. Whereas I feel like some of these people are kind of like fight or flight all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And their decision making process is all based on that, and that's where this like instinct comes from. But yeah, there's cold calculated killers too. We could name a list of them right now.
It's all about mindset, really. I believe that there are specific groups of people who are capable of something like this because of the way they think. And those people need to fit that criteria to begin with. And then after that, they have to be treated a certain way by the people around them. And then that makes the perfect concoction to create a shooter. You have to have those things. So we don't have the ability to tell who's thinking this way yet. But we do have the capability to see that some people aren't doing all right with other people. But we don't have the power, or we don't have the structure currently to assist them before something goes horribly wrong. Because we can't. You would have to assign a person to that specific kid for a very long amount of time before any real progress is made. Because otherwise, you're just having a kid sit with a therapist for 30 minutes once a week, and then nothing changes.
Yeah, I do like that. I agree with you in some capacity, because I've always said that whenever it comes to making laws about like people with certain mental records or history of problems not being able to purchase guns, I always like to make the point that crazy people don't purchase guns and then go perform a shooting. Gun owners go crazy and perform a shooting.
You think so?
So I think that premeditation that you're describing, which can still not understand the consequences of their actions, can definitely exist. So,
well, you're. I think in your argument you're skipping over a step. So the people who do want to start shooting, if they don't have a gun, they will acquire one through illegal means, such as finding it online.
yeah,
there's a lot of channels where you can go to get a. There are actually internet gun stores. You could order a gun online and have it shipped to you. Well,
you can get it shipped to a vendor.
It's shipped to a gun store. Yes,
yeah.
But the point is it's now you have the ability to find out exactly what you want, and then you go on Craigslist or any other .onion site.
Well, I think we might disagree on the finer points, but we're both saying the same thing: is that laws against certain people being able to purchase guns are kind of
They don't do anything.
They won't do anything, because either A, you already own the guns and then you snap, or you have a transformation in your personality that makes you decide to go hurt people, or that you just get it through an illegal means, or legal means that's kind of sketchy. So
you were talking about nurses who had bad days earlier. I know someone who works in nursing, specifically like elderly nursing homes.
Yeah.
They would tell me stories about other CNAs or certified nurses assistants who would just treat the patients like objects, because like their job is to take care of them, right? Clean up after them, make sure that they've been fed and walked around and everything they need to do to be a person, because they're not able to be independent anymore. And sometimes they just treat them horribly. And that is everywhere. This person has worked in at least 4 different nursing homes, and everywhere is the same thing. There's just some people who are horrible to our elderly.
Yeah,
and that's just how it is. And they are so understaffed because they can't afford to hire more people. They also can't afford to fire those people because then they'll be even more understaffed. It's horrible. That's just a small rant. Ronwin says, in Canada, you cannot purchase a firearm if you have visited a therapist within 5 years of applying. Wow.
Wow. Wait a minute. But if you're seeing the therapist, that's the point, right?
You'd think
That's
you'd
the
be
point
more
of the
mentally
therapist?
healthy.
That's wild.
That's crazy.
If I can get personal for a second,
Go ahead.
I went to therapist my whole. I was in a psychiatric. I've been to therapist my whole life. I was in a little bit of an institution during my teen years, and when I went to the store in my town called Atwoods to buy a gun, my my background check took so long. Everyone was very uncomfortable, but then it just went. So it's fine here. You can do whatever you want and get a gun here. I don't know which end of the spectrum I trust more at this point, but I think that both ends are kind of messed.
Well, sure. I think our systems are based to work with 300 million people. So I think that's a problem to begin with.
Small government, man.
But then smaller government hurts international affairs, but bigger government hurts national affairs, I think. So it's hard to find a balance between the two.
That's true. Because somebody pwned me on the issue of small government in my youth. We were talking about I was talking about how every state should have its national laws, and every state should have its own, like almost like little countries, like Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Someone just right off the cuff was just, well, what if someone invades? I'm trying to think of a
California
state that would be problem. California, yeah, they're a coastal state. They have a lot of enemies on their edge. They could get invaded, and then another state right next to them might decide not to help. That's why the national framework has to exist, according to the ideas that our founding fathers put through. That's definitely wise. We need somebody to start calling shots when the poo hits the fan.
It's a way of balance, and I think what we have now is probably the best we're gonna get anytime soon. But however, changing laws right now is such a sluggish process, and it's kind of laughable in a way because of how much these people, senators and House representatives don't even have to show up to work. They don't have to.
Nice. Wow, we made it 38 minutes in without you mentioning the amount that people are paid to work for the government. No, that's true though. That makes me upset every time, and there's no tangible route to try to make change, which is also frustrating. Whoa.
I slid off and then came back.
Well,
so you mentioned earlier, I taught you about what is called, it doesn't really have a proper name, I don't think, but I've been referring to it as king posting, where people would talk, there would be these like little comics made with stock images of, or maybe not stock, but just images of very muscly, very jacked, shirtless men on their computers, just typing out their keyboards, and they would be like having really friendly, masculine conversations with each other, such as, "Hey, you're don't let anybody tell you otherwise, King. You're amazing. You're great." Things like that, just focused strictly towards positivity, and I think that's great. It's gotten a little bit of popularity. People referring to other people as just king because you're a king. Just sort of masculine affirmation and encouragement in a time where I think we might finally be breaking out of the just man up era, which I think is a positive thing.
Okay.
Saying that men have emotions too.
Yeah, that's really important. That might help with all the issues we discussed on this episode so far, actually.
Oh yeah, how come all school shooters are males? What's up with that?
I think it's because our society conditions males to not have emotional outlet. I think that being strong, I think there's actually some truth. I was struggling with this just the other day because I was thinking about how men are supposed to be tough, right? They're not supposed to show their emotions. They're not supposed to talk about their emotions. And there's this ideology from these left extremists, not to just destroy half my fan base, but these people that believe that men should be able to express their emotions. But if you're a husband and a father and you're angry and you express that emotion, you're a bad husband and you're a bad father. Or if you're a husband and you're scared and you express that emotion, to know, I'm not talking about let's discuss the problems we haven't fixed them. I'm talking about just speaking about your emotion. And so for me my wife and I are always in the same situation. So for me to feel scared, I know that she's already feeling scared about the same thing because we're united, we're bonded. So for me to voice my emotions is putting an unnecessary burden on her. Can you dig it? To help me with my problems that I am not contributing to the conversation in any meaningful way when I speak about them. I'm only like, even the words that come to my mind are feeding into this, phallocentric culture. Bitching is what I want to call it. That's the first word that came to my head.
Stop
and isn't
whining.
stop whining, man up. But if you don't man up, you're hurting the people around you in a lot of fundamental ways, I would argue. What do you think of that?
I would agree. I think there's a certain time and place. I don't think a 13-year-old boy in school needs to man up. Maybe a father with children who are scared, absolutely. But I think that's on both the parents. I don't think have you ever seen World War Z comes to mind. Have you seen that movie?
A little bit of it, yeah. It was fast zombies.
So yes, so at the beginning of the movie, like every zombie movie has a this is how the outbreak started part, right? So this one happened. The lead woman, it wasn't what was what's the lead man's name? It was I won this. Brad Pitt. Thank you. Okay, so Brad Pitt, and his in the movie his wife. She had a very feminine role as a mother, but she was just as awesome as he was in the movie. She kicked butt the entire time while also being a mother and taking care of the kids, which I think was awesome. She was the entire time calming down the kid who was having an asthma attack while also making it so that looking at him, what can we do? While also trying to help the situation and be her own person the entire time, which is sort of lost in historical culture, where it would be the woman who would just be as useful as one of the crying kids in that situation, while the man takes care of everything. So I think that was a great contrast. What I'm alluding to is that there should be, in your specific situation, your wife and you are both scared, but you're thinking more for your children, right? So you would both in that situation man up.
Yeah, that's true. It shouldn't apply specifically to gender any more than anything should, which is something that we've been discovering as a country a lot. But there's a lot of downsides to that argument. I think there's a lot of consequences.
To just alleviating gender entirely?
Absolutely. Like, I mean, you know what I'm getting at, right? I'm just trying to be devil's advocate.
Go on.
Okay, so like for example, men statistically have 20% more muscle mass than women.
Okay.
So there's kind of a fight with equality that's trying to be had where it doesn't really make sense and actually damages the cause.
Okay. So you mean in any situation that involves physical strength?
Yeah, any situation that involves physical strength or basically just that. That's all we really have on them.
Sure.
Right?
Maybe height, average height.
Maybe height.
I mean,
spatial reasoning, being able to navigate.
I was at Hobby Lobby and I saw a woman who was about 3 inches taller than me. That was cool. So it's I mean, average height doesn't really pertain to it, but I don't think it's the strongest unaugmented woman will she be as strong as the strongest unaugmented man? I don't think so. No. Not because of any other reason but besides genetics. I think
just genetic.
I think the smartest woman can be as smart as the smartest man, or smarter. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I think that the only thing holding women back at this point is just cultural things.
Yeah, I think that too. There's all these evolutionary leftovers, is what I think of them as. There's things that used to be really helpful to procreate and to get us to where we're at right now. Now we're at a point where we start to look around and realize, hey, survival isn't everything. Mm-hmm. There's things called fairness and goodness and equality.
Yeah.
And we start to try to implement those things into our cultural landscape. And we run up against these odds where there's still situations where the old heteronormative 1940s way of thinking are completely applicable. Mm-hmm. Like, tigers off the top of my head.
Okay.
I don't know. Llamas. I'd be afraid of a llama. If it was like me or my wife versus a llama, I'm not 100% of the time. There's not one situation where I think she could fight a llama back. And that's just a llama.
But if we're being fair, do you know your wife to be someone who would be someone who would fight in any situation? Not necessarily because she's a woman or because she's a mother, but because she probably hasn't entered a boxing ring anytime recently. She probably hasn't pushed up on a barbell anytime recently. Maybe if she did those sort of things, you would think of her as in, yeah, I'm not worried. She could handle herself. But
absolutely. Because of the type if she'd been proven better than me. Oh, I see what you're saying. If I know that she's better in this field, am I going to let her do it? Or am I going to let my misguided gender roles from society tell me, nope, I have to die now?
Right.
That's absolutely true.
Imagine a comic where a very strong bodybuilder woman who has a boyfriend of a 5'6" scrawny nerd guy with glasses, and then he just walks up, ooh, I'm going to defend her honor. That's not how it works. She's better in that field.
I think that's true. I think you should offer, but that's just culture. That's culture still talking. I'm just a puppet for the big culture. That's what they want you to think. You should at least be like, oh, let me have him, and then have her be like, no, sir, step for you. But
so yeah, no, that's true. Sir, then
whoever's better at it. Like I feel that's a good. Who made a good point like that? I can't remember. That's a good. I mean, we all agree that equality is there's a lot of stuff in physical reality that's stopping that from being the norm. And us trying to make it the norm is a good thing, but us trying too hard might be I would say we both agree.
There's a lot of toxic things that are left over because they need to be. However, I was actually experiencing firsthand how easy it is to talk about changing the way people think at a young age and how actually putting it to practice is. So I was, for the past 2 days, I don't want to say babysitting because I wasn't really. I was in charge of 2 young boys who I think they're 11. And they were staying at my house for a couple days because they're on Thanksgiving break and they like it at my house because my house has all the cool toys. But they're my nephews, and they're the exact same age. One is 6 months older than the other, and they live together. They're brothers, half brothers, and they play together, but they always are arguing and bickering. I don't think a single like 10 minutes went by without someone saying something rude to the other. And at first I tried to stop it. I tried to say, "Hey, that's not a nice thing to say," and then they say, "Okay," and then they just go right back to it. I didn't know what to do to make them think differently towards each other and want to be friendlier towards each other. And then I thought, you know what? I did the exact same thing when I was their age, and I turned out okay, I think.
Yeah, which that's kind of a slippery slope argument sometimes, but for the most part, like I think about, I was just talking about this with my dad the other day because we were really big when I was periodically on not having a TV.
Okay.
Right? So from like, I'm pretty sure from like 1 to 3, I probably had a TV around me. And then I remember because the TV stopped, there stopped being a TV. And it was very heartbreaking for several years. Then I got a TV back again. And I had this internalized fear from my parents that watching too much TV is somehow bad for you. And to this day, I will fall asleep watching TV. I'll play something until I fall asleep. It helps me go to sleep. Sometimes I'll play it while I'm doing homework, like for the podcast or something. And it helps me focus on my homework. And I see my son watching these screens and have this knee-jerk fear of, oh my God, he's a slave to the screen masters. What are we going to do? But in reality, I'm like, what? I'm smarter than literally every single person that's ever been on this podcast. And so I don't understand.
What was that?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I tried to turn it around and do a joke at the last minute. But my point being that I turned out fine, like you said. Just because I use a TV as a crutch, that means I'm actually in some ways. Don't you think?
You cut out that you're what in some ways?
Oh, I'm actually probably better off in some way.
Because you watch TV?
Because I watch TV. Yeah.
Sure.
That's my tool. I used it like all humans have since the dawn of time. Something in your environment, you grab it, figure out what you can do. It's a tool.
Yeah. Sure.
So I play it for background music when I'm lonely. I play it for background when I'm trying to focus on something. And it helps me go to sleep. I mean, I don't think that's damaged my thought processes. Buy Kellogg's. Buy Kellogg's.
Yeah, advertisements are definitely a cancer. But I agree. There's nothing. I don't think there's ever been anything super wrong with TV. I think there were just like fear campaigns for people who didn't really understand it, particularly old people who didn't have it growing up. And so it's actually kind of, I'm getting the same knee-jerk reaction when I see children who have grown up with a smartphone in their little tiny baby hands.
Yeah.
And being like, I didn't have that when I was a kid. They have that, and they're so dependent on it when I wasn't. They're always in communication with everything. Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. But then I'm like, what? Well, so am I now.
Yeah. That's exactly the point. Like, remember the Flynn effect that I talked about? Where every generation is smarter than the next one?
Yes.
So this other podcast that I was listening to, the Cracked podcast, they talked about this and how the guy who created it, who wrote down the thing, he thought that he actually saw the end of the Flynn effect happening in his own lifetime because of smartphones and devices. Yes. And the people that were talking on the podcast about him pointed out that that's actually showing the Flynn effect surpassing him because his brain can't comprehend that this is the greatest tool that I've ever picked up. Yes. And my ability to use this tool fastly to solve crimes and, get ladies or whatever is exponentially greater than all of my ancestors before.
Yeah.
So the thing that I would like to see eventually is we get this fully integrated into our brain, right?
Yes.
And then we have, instead of like an SAT or an IQ test where you pass based on rote memorization, right?
A
little bit of problem solving, the most that we can.
Okay.
But try to imagine, if you will, a test that would exist that having your phone wouldn't help you.
The test of not having electronics around you. I got nothing.
Exactly. That's the next phase. They're going to have tests probably in my son's time where all the knowledge on the internet won't be able to help you. It'll be a purely logical examination of your faculties and how your brain fires off. It'll probably be subconscious. They'll probably just put an electrode on your head and show you a bunch of pictures and then go, "Oh, you passed," or something. I don't know.
When I went to a half a semester of college, and I was only taking 2 classes. Both of those classes, all the answers to their tests were online, and so I didn't sign up for another semester at all because it was all just cookie cutter. Yeah, there was nothing tailored. It was just here's stuff, and then but if I could find all the material online, why am I paying for this to begin with?
Oh, it had nothing to do with your white supremacist rally and getting pepper sprayed by the security guard and getting kicked out of school. It was definitely just, it's too easy. I'm kidding, everyone. I'm sorry. I don't know anything about Don's college. I just thought that would be. I'm sorry. That's good though that you quit, because now I didn't do that. I just kept going through the motions, and I am in debt forever. Actually, I consulted a lawyer. There's no
way out.
I was like, I could kill myself. He was like, yeah, we tried that. It's not gonna happen.
Oh no.
I'm just kidding.
There's student college is a scam in these days. Here, let me really quick pull up an infographic. College tuition versus minimum wage increase. Okay. Paying for your college 30 years ago versus paying for your college today. Okay. So in 1987, college for let's see. This is 4 years of college in the University of Central Florida. So this is a university. 4 years, 1987, 33 grand. United States dollars. So let's really quick adjust that for inflation. Inflation calculator, USD. So in 1987 to 2019, so what was the amount? $33,100. Bam. Calculate. So that would be roughly 75 grand today. Now,
big house.
So about 75 grand for 4 years of college. And that's about, did I just find out that that's exactly how much it costs today? Yeah, it costs actually less than that. It costs for tuition these days, at least as it was in 2016. It's going to be a little bit higher, but it was about 62 grand. So, adjusting for inflation, college is actually cheaper now. For specifically the University of Central Florida.
Bernie 2020.
Here, let me type in. So what other college could you think of?
Type in Oklahoma Wesleyan University.
Okay, yeah, it's in here. Bam, go. Okay, so it was 59 grand in 87, and it's 135 grand now.
That's a little better.
Which, that is actually mark for mark perfect for inflation. 59 grand in 87 is 135 grand now.
Huh. It's almost like they got a bunch of smart people at these places or something.
So if college costs the same as it did 30 years ago, why is it now so out of reach? It's because we're not making as much money as people were that long ago. Because in 87, let's see, what was the minimum wage in 87? Wasn't it $5.25? Minimum wage in 1987.
I remember it.
It was $3.35. Imagine working at McDonald's making $3.35.
Yeah, but your Coca-Cola is like 75 cents though, right?
Well, sure. Now $3.35 adjusted for inflation is $7.59. So it's almost mark for mark. Perfect. Minimum wage.
Weird.
So how did this happen?
Someone's pulling the wool over our eyes.
Are we learning a conspiracy theory? Maybe 87 isn't a good year to compare it to. Maybe 87 was when all this downhill battle started. Maybe I should be saying like 1965. Okay. Oh. Yes, that's what I should be doing. Oh my god.
Wow.
Something happened in that 20-year mark that okay, so $1 in 1965
Reaganomics.
and then $1 in 1987, it tripled. It
Oh.
almost quadrupled. $1 in 65 and $1 in 87, or $1 in 1965 is worth $3.61 in 1987. So it more than tripled. So that's what we should be comparing these two. So when our grandparents were going to college, because apparently college actually hasn't increased at all in the last 30 years, according to these infographics from MarketWatch.com. That is. So college hasn't increased at all in the past 30 years. It increased sometime between 1965 and 1987. So that's when it happened. And it's been going on for 30 years, apparently.
That's interesting. We should probably have a whole episode about
college tuition?
About college tuition. But also, I want to say college tuition versus the cost of college are two different animals. Because a cost of college is not being able to work your job, right? A cost of college is room and board. Cost of college is feeding yourself, taking care of possible dependents. And I really got to use the restroom. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
I'll be right back.
Oh man. Romwin, are you still here? So maybe it was okay. Wow. Yeah, between the 60s and the 70s, it was the inflation rate was crazy. Just 20 years from 1967 to 1987 the United States dollar tripled. And probably not much different with the Canadian dollar. That's crazy. Because when did the Federal Reserve stop? When did the gold standard stop? 1971. How about that? So 1970, compare it to 1972. Yeah, there wasn't a huge increase, but it started stepping up like crazy over the next decade. That 10-year mark, just 10 years, was enough to inflate the dollar by double. Between 1990 and today, the dollar hasn't that's 30 years almost, by the way. The dollar has not doubled in 30 years. So there was such a rapid inflation during that time that just annihilated the economy and the dollar. And the gold standard also stopped in that same amount of time.
The gold standard. This went off on it.
The gold standard stopped at in 1971. So I got some bits of information for you real quick. So
let me hear.
Between 1970 and 1980, that 10-year margin, the dollar doubled halved in worth.
Okay.
It has not done that in the past 29 years. The dollar has almost doubled in the past 29 years. Less than happened in that 10-year period is all I was saying. Anyway, so we were talking about something that you can do to change to something you can actually touch and do and change with what we're talking about. So
you're talking about the feedback we got.
Yes.
Yeah, we got some feedback recently about our podcast from one of our many fans that we need to have a tangible solution for some of the stuff we're talking about. Otherwise, it's too heavy and sad. So if the things that I can think of for doing tangible things, what for example, Donald, would you be most passionate about actually trying to change with the podcast?
So I was thinking about changing people's is giving people some real first experience about how policemen have to respond to life or death situations. To create a workshop where someone can volunteer to be a policeman while we have actors who would be aggressors. And it's up to them in the heat of the moment to figure out what to do in that time. I think it wouldn't be super hard to make either. It wouldn't even be expensive. It would cost like total maybe $40.
Yeah. So you're talking about just a Nerf gun. You wouldn't have the real weight and feel of an actual gun. They have blue guns just for that purpose.
You can modify a Nerf gun. You could increase the weight of it, and you could make it feel more real. It would just require time and hours to actually put work into that.
Yeah, we could definitely do that.
I'd
love to have a.
I'm never gonna stop talking about this now. This is the third time I brought it up. I would be totally down to make this happen, record people actually doing it, and then upload it to YouTube on our channel, reviving_discourse.
Absolutely. Let's try to mirror the thing they did in Chicago if we can find to see if we can make it legitimate as well. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that won't be legitimate about it, like training for years, but it'd still be really interesting to have a bunch of people of a variety of different opinions go in there and have the mindset of, okay, I'm a policeman. Every single situation's different. This could actually, I think that'd be good for me for sure. Cause I sometimes need to come from a place that's more respectful and,
it would require a lot of research.
What's the word? Research. Yeah. It
would require a lot of research. The people who would be the actors would have to have different ethnic backgrounds too. What they wear and what they look like is going to be really important because if someone is a specific ethnicity, you might have a different knee-jerk reaction in that situation just automatically, because in that situation the person is going to be thinking, what information am I going to get quickly? And the clothes they're wearing and the color of their skin is the first thing you see when you look at someone.
Yeah.
So they might have a knee-jerk reaction based off of that.
That's another one of those evolutionary leftovers that I think we were talking about earlier. Having a knee-jerk reaction based on someone's color of skin or their ethnicity or what they're wearing it was evolutionarily handy to get us where we are, because tribalism kept our tribes alive for a lot of history. Yes, but nowadays, having that knee-jerk reaction is actually bad, and we know that that's bad. Right. And we need to all try to grow to change that. But the fact that it exists, I love that you brought that up. We should acknowledge that too, and have a random, we would be able to randomize the results so that you never know who's going to be the bad guy and who isn't.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
Oh, we got to make this happen.
So that's something that you're passionate about too. That's cool. I didn't expect that. That blindsided me, Don.
Well, because I feel like the opposite, where you would think that the policeman would be able, or the policeman would be able to understand the situation and know what to do quickly. I think the opposite. I think that most people will either they would die because they chose the wrong thing, or they would kill someone who they didn't need to kill because they also chose the wrong thing. I think we're going to see a lot of that.
But don't you think the people that choose that profession should be able to, don't you think that people that are drawn to that profession should be the type of people that have a cool in those situations, ideally? I know that's not the case right now.
Well, we talked about, in the last podcast, we talked about you can't bottle passion.
Yeah.
Are you only going to hire police officers who are super passionate about being able to excel in those situations?
Nope. You get a lot of power hungry people. You get a lot of sketchy people. You get a lot of people that have different motivations than actually wanting to help and for the better.
Yep.
And I think the amount of people that aren't out there to actually help, that have different motivations, like monetary gain or just a power fantasy, is a lot larger of a percent of the total amount of policemen than our media, our culture would have you think.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that idea too. So what else, Pastor? What else are we gonna do? How else are we gonna change this world of ours here?
Well, so can you read to me what's on that list of or the very small list of cultural things that should change on our Discord chat?
I can.
What's it say?
One says police too good to be true? Question mark? I think we covered that.
Yes.
And then another one says, are you responsible for your own children? Which sounds like a trick, but maybe we should elaborate. Because obviously you're responsible for your own children in that you should raise your children. We're not advocating no one raise children, right?
Right.
Okay.
So it's more so if I have a kid because I want to have a kid, and then I realize after I've had a kid, I don't make enough money in order to support this kid, what should happen?
I mean, you will. In this country, thank God, you'll be able to.
What if I say I can't afford baby formula because I'm spending too much money on my video cards for my new computer?
Then you are failing in a fundamental way, I would say.
Yeah, but
You're
what
failing
happens?
your child. What happens?
That is correct, but what happens next?
Your computer's fast and your kid.
And my kid's what? You cut out.
Your kid's hungry.
Yeah. Right. So,
yeah.
Am I able to knock on your door and say, "Hey, Alex, I can't afford baby formula. Can you help me?"
I guess that according to my stance on the issue, I would have to say yes. That somehow, through some means, if you have a child and you're unable to take care of the child, you are privy to certain benefits from the government for moral reasons. I guess that's my stance, and I have to defend that now. Oh, geez.
So, you say that because I only hear what I want to. You say that I'm saying that I am financially irresponsible. And because I have a child and I am financially irresponsible, it is your responsibility to be responsible for me.
Not for you.
For my child.
For your kid. Yeah. The kid didn't choose you.
Sure.
Oh, that's a great. I just defeated you easily.
Did you?
Yeah, I'm not trying to help. I'm not trying to help you. I'm trying to help this poor kid that's got you as a schmuck for a dad over here with your video.
Now that kid has a bottle that's just siphoning into your bank account, then drinking out of it. And you're okay with that?
So what alternative do I? This kid is going to be hungry, and I mean, worst case scenario, it very rarely happens in America. I will say that, but it does happen. They're going to die from starvation, right?
Yep. Or
more likely, a lot more likely, they're going to grow up without an understanding of how economics work, or how saving money works, or how being responsible with what you are given in life works, because of the example that's been set by their irresponsible parent. So they will become more of a burden on society. Did you know that you can become brain damaged from being hungry?
Yes.
Over extended periods of time?
Absolutely. Your girls get stunted too? It's awful.
So this child who hasn't done anything wrong yet, would I rather give that person money, or would I rather give a person in the future money who's already, if I had to think about it in those simplistic of terms, then yes, I would rather give it to the little baby because he's innocent. My little human brain likes him. His eyes are bigger than they should be.
Side note, did you know that your eyes never grow?
Mm-hmm. They're the same size. That's why babies are so cute.
Because they have gigantic eyes in relation to their tiny little heads.
And that is a trait on the entire planet for mammals. I think for a lot more than just mammals, but I'm going to stick with mammals because I'm afraid. But your eyes when you're a baby are so much bigger proportionately because those babies that had big eyes survived more because we think they're
because we won't eat them because they're too cute.
You can't eat it. It's so cute. It's disproportionately so.
But my argument is that children are the responsibility of their parents. All or nothing. And that this is all the way to the beginning. If you are not financially responsible enough to have a child, you should not have it. And I kind of want to take that to the extreme a little bit, in where if you can't take care of your child, you can't take care of your child, so somebody else will, not you.
That's a shockingly leftist view from you, right-wing Republican gun-owning don.
You're gonna keep saying that, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, I just for the sake of our show. Yeah, sorry if I
it's okay.
Was actually just being a dick. But yeah, so in this dream world, the state is going to have impunity for some things. Doesn't that scare you?
Not if used in the correct way, I suppose. So there should be specific criteria. I agree to an extent that struggling families should have government assistance. Yes. However, if your entire plan is to always struggle, for instance, you have a kid, you have a job, and you're never going to get ahead, I think that's totally different than you're laid off from your job.
That's just what I was thinking of. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a sticky one. That's a sticky wicket because I hate almost as much as I can hate something whenever I hear these people talk about the person on welfare buying their nice sneakers and getting their nice shirts. Because first of all, let's get the crappy part out of the way. This is kind of a racial dig, right?
Is it?
I think so. I think that those people are picturing a certain type of person, and it's not like them. It's not a white person when they get mad at these people that are welfare skimming to get nice shoes, specifically, is the example that I've always heard. And second of all, that is so handy for people that don't want to just point at one specific example of a bad apple spoiling the bunch, which I admit I said the same thing about police and their brutality ways, that one bad apple would spoil the entire bunch. But when it comes to people that are in poverty, like, you don't accidentally become a policeman. You can accidentally fall into poverty all the time. People do that all the time.
Sure.
If you have an accident, there should.
What about the people who are perpetually in poverty, though? That are never going to be out. Are never going to be out of it.
You know what that reminds?
What's that?
That reminds me of the consensus we came to about illegal immigrants, where what I think we both agreed that if they're here for a certain amount of time and they don't have a plan in place to become a citizen, then they are in trouble then.
Right.
I think we both agreed on that point. So maybe that would be a thing that we could implement as an answer for both of us, is if people in poverty make a 5-step plan like they have you do in high school. Maybe these people didn't have a great high school experience. Maybe they don't even, maybe that's a fresh new concept. And the only way they're going to, sorry?
They don't know the 5-point plan?
Yeah, they don't know the 5-point plan. They don't know the 5-paragraph essay. They don't know how to get one thing to lead to another successfully, very easily. So I think that a lot of those disadvantages will be alleviated by a strong, I mean, let's face it, taxpayer-funded hand reaching into their life and saying, hey, you need to have a plan or else you're all going to be really hungry. That would be reasonable for both of us, right? Like if there was a board of, let's call it, I don't know. I can't think of a good name. The poop plan? The POOP?
Okay.
Power over profit? I don't know.
Power over our profit? That sounds really communist, seizing the means of production.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds bad. Did you listen to the Democratic debates, by the way?
No.
Oh, well, they were pretty good.
You got any highlights for me?
Highlight reel. I can give you a little bit of a highlight. So Bernie Sanders is really popular in a way.
Okay.
But because he hasn't been handpicked by the Democratic Party, he's not doing. They didn't give him as much of an opportunity to elaborate on things as they gave to Elizabeth Warren, because I believe that she's been handpicked. So basically, you've got this handpicked puppet of the establishment, Elizabeth Warren, who says some pretty good things. It sounds. I honestly got excited when she was talking about the success tax, where if you make like a certain amount, like billions of dollars, then a tax kicks in where you have to help fund social programs because you've made it so successfully that it's astronomical. That's a cool idea.
What if they want to keep their money?
So if you have the power of a small country, and you are only using it on your close sphere of friends and family,
yes,
don't you think that there could be a little bit to be said about like pennies on the dollar going to something that's for everyone?
Yes, I do. That doesn't
really?
change. That doesn't change how it works, though.
That doesn't change how it works, though. Go ahead, elaborate on that. So I know you've got some.
If you start taxing the rich, then the rich will look for places to cut costs. Eventually, those costs that they're cutting or moving or changing start to hurt. You said that these billionaires have the power of a small country. Now imagine if that small country is supporting your big country as a portion of whatever. So we're saying that they have 100,000 jobs in Alabama. Now, the United States is now making it so that they can make the same amount of money or a little bit less money than they're making currently somewhere else. That's always on the table. Now, when America starts saying, you're not allowed to make as much money anymore, they'll say, why not? They'll say, because it's not right. And they'll say, okay, I'll just go to Kazakhstan over here where I can make a little bit less money, but still more than you're offering. It's just math. If they wanted to give away their money, they would be doing it. They don't want to because they want their money. Should they give away their money a little bit? Probably yes, absolutely, because nobody needs that much money. But they will always have alternatives. There's only a certain amount that you could take from them before they'll take it somewhere else. And it's happened. This isn't some crazy conspiracy theory. That's why every time you call tech support, you're talking to somebody who you can't understand. Because it's cheaper to have people in India who their minimum wage is $5,000 a year, which equates to, I think, like $4 an hour, maybe a little bit less. And their conditions are horrible. But it's cheap, and big companies do it because it's cheap, and they can.
So where has your... I have so many things to say to that.
Go ahead.
First, I have two things to say to that, actually. Okay. First thing that I wanted to say to that is that I have learned from doing this podcast with you mostly and having a lot of civilized discussion about the difference between liberal and conservative thinking, is that this conservative idea that often it's whenever you're talking about any issue that impacts big business or taxation of rich, there's this assumption that, okay, let me just rephrase your argument quick if I can to make sure we're on the same page. So your argument for this specific issue is that if we make it difficult to do it in America where it benefits America, these billionaires are going to go to other places besides America and no longer benefit us.
Right.
So why is the entire argument of that you're saying is that these people are not good? These rich people are going to do what's best for only them no matter what. It's like you're so close to stumbling upon the fundamental truth that leftist-leaning people try to perpetuate.
I'm going to put a stake in your
argument. And then you miss it entirely. Go ahead.
Here's my hammer and stake.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I deserve. Oh,
if they wanted to do it, we wouldn't have to force them to.
What if they just never thought of it? What if there's actually some good rich people? I mean, this is me, the left side leaning, saying this. That should say a lot. What if there's some actual good rich people that don't mind giving cents on the dollar after they've made it to where they never have to work again?
But they're not smart enough to already know that.
I don't know. I mean, if they don't want to do it, us trying to make them do it, and as a result, them leaving us.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that you would talk to, if you described that as a relationship, would say that's an unhealthy relationship.
Sure, absolutely.
You just aren't going to implement these things for the greater good because they're going to leave us.
I've talked about this before, but your whole argument stems off of that you think a company cares about people. They care about the bottom line.
I think rich people care about people.
I don't think the people who hire people from India in terrible, deplorable work conditions for pennies on the dollar care about the state of how humanity is at all, even a little bit. I think okay. People like oh yeah, Nova 9. It is definitely abusive. Welcome to the stream, by the way. Good to see your name.
Yes, Nova 9.
However, people who want to, I could think of Elon Musk as a topical example. And an entrepreneur. Say that word for me, please. Entrepreneur. Thank you, entrepreneur. Who actually wants to make a difference, who wants to further humanity as a whole, who wants to plant 1 million trees out of their own pocket and fly to Mars and have Martian colonies of humans and send their own car that they made into space and also create a truck out of triple folded stainless steel that looks like something from a video game because they want humanity to be better. Not because he wants to make a profit. He could sell the Tesla for $1 million a car, but he's doing it for what, 100,000? That's the type of person who wants to do it. And that's the type of person who wouldn't outsource to a different country. However, the billionaires we do have, they don't think like he does. He was recently on a talk show or some sort of news panel with the richest man in China. And oh my gosh, it was one of the cringiest things I've ever seen.
Oh no.
The man from China who owns it's essentially Amazon but for Chinese products. He was just talking nonsense the entire time. Saying that I don't care about Mars. I care about down here. I care about Earth. Completely missing the point that getting to Mars is it both advances humanity and stimulates the economy, but whatever. We have chat message. Nova9 says, also, for your argument, I would say that we cleverly already made rules to keep these companies from abusing us, i.e. child labor laws and minimum wage. At what point do you feel we should stop making these rules? When does morality become law?
That's a good point. That's a really good point. So we've done a lot of steps to make these people that are more powerful than most humans on the planet, mm-hmm. right? We're accepting that that's the group of people that we're talking about. When you reach power beyond human comprehension, essentially,
yes,
you have these laws like child labor laws, minimum wage that exist because, hey, you have power, you can't use it with impunity. There's certain things you can and cannot do. So when you're saying that this argument, this one thing that would benefit social programs would be the straw that broke the camel's, at what point does that become you giving up on corporations? Like, we expect them to not make children do their work, right? Go read that for me, would you?
Nova 9 says, and other countries don't have those rules, so it's already pennies on the dollar to go somewhere else. There's a certain limit. So there's certain things that you can't bring to another country because that other country doesn't have the skill set required to do the job. For instance, they're not going to outsource, what is it? Very, very particular medical devices, things that like need to go inside people in order to save their lives. Those are very refined things that need to be made to a quality standard, and you can't cut corners on that. However, if a topical one would be a call center job, someone that anybody, a dropout of high school would be able to do without much difficulty. The hardest part is just learning the language of the person you're talking to. And even then, you don't have to do that entirely, just like 80 to 90%, so you can have a at least say your script that you're needing to say. That's easy to outsource. So the more the harder the work is, the easier it is to outsource. And that's why when you said other countries don't have those rules, it's already pennies on the dollar. We already have that, particularly with call center jobs.
That leads me to my second thing that I was going to say about your argument.
Yep.
Is that the people that would vouch for your argument in the same ideological would say that competition is what makes socialism and what makes capitalism good, because the best company with the best quality of service is going to get the most customers in service, while bad companies fail.
Yes.
So let's say that this company, when it finds out that we want to take pennies on the dollar for social programs, leaves to another country and makes a call center where the calls are outsourced to people that barely speak the language of the consumers that they're. Won't you say, as a capitalist, right-leaning argument person for this situation that we're in, that the competition is going to defeat them? Don't you think that them leaving us for another country just to get pennies on the dollar work is going to shine through their work and make us go to other countries or companies? I'm sorry.
Name a country or name a company that sells a consumer level technology equipment. Anything.
Consumer level technology?
Yes.
You're talking about things that everyday people need to buy?
That you can go and buy yourself at a somewhat affordable price. Something that you could buy and use. Name any brand for me.
Toyota?
Tech, specifically.
Oh, it's technology besides that. What about Fit?
Say that again?
Fitbit?
A Fitbit, right?
Is that accessible? Does that scan?
What is it? I don't even know what a Fitbit is.
It's a device that you wear that monitors the amount of exercise you're getting.
Okay, cool. A Fitbit. Now, do me a favor and name something that you might need like a technical support help desk for. Like here.
A router.
Okay, so a router. We'll say okay, here, I'll help you because I don't think I thought this through. So we'll say any phone manufacturer. We'll say Samsung. They outsource some of their call centers for their tech support. Apple does as well. If you need help for your iPhone, if you call in tech support, you're speaking to somebody in India. I recently had to do this with an Apple product that I own. The person who was helping me was awesome, and they knew exactly what they were doing, which was such a refreshment. I was expecting to have to call somebody and have to really explain what they were having to say, but they make, if I had to guess, probably a third of what I make at my job, but they're as good at their job as I am at mine. But they live in a horrible place as far as economics goes. However, I actually wanted to go ahead and respond to what I was going to say, or to what I just said for me real quick, and then I wanted to talk about something else.
Am I frozen right now?
I thought you were just permanently scowling at me.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, there you go. I fixed it. Sorry.
Okay. So you want me to respond to the fact that there's people that are working these jobs that are equally skilled as Americans, but they are making less money because the companies are bad?
Yeah.
I would argue that the companies are bad.
That's a pretty good argument. So what about these places, these developing countries? India, we could talk about that one.
Yeah.
Really quick before I get into it, Nova9 says, so do you feel like we should be doing research to confirm what is going to be possible to be paid without scaring too many people away, too many companies? Sure. I don't see the harm in that.
That's a logical approach to this situation. Like, if you interviewed all of them, like, how much would
you give us without leaving?
We know you're not going to be Elon Musk, okay, Verizon, but we just need you to pitch in a teeny bit for our roads, and then you'll have more people buying your stuff anyway, because they'll be able to drive to the Verizon store. So what do you say? How much would it be on the table? And they would say, quarter penny a month, a year. And then we'd say, okay, all right, that's fine. As long as you're still hanging out with us and we're able to say, we put morality clauses in place and they are working. That would be fine.
1 quarter, 1 penny. That's what we get every year.
Every year. That'd be fine. It'd be the principle of the thing.
So what I was going to say about that is, what do you think about people who are working in India who make $5,000 a year, which is, I think, about $3 an hour? What do you think about that? Whereas the alternative is they work on a farm and make even less than that. But now they're working in a call center, making way more than they would ever have done before, but it's still significantly less than what they would make here. What do you think about that?
I love that our country. Well, no, I don't love it, because you're right. There's fair that we think of as Americans to attribute to everyone that they're not the full benefits of. They're getting a little bit. Yes. It's like, hey, be thankful for what you can get. Beggars can't be choosers. But the fact that you aren't using your power to make there be less beggars when you are as powerful as a superhero makes you a supervillain.
But without it, they wouldn't get any of it. So is something better than nothing? Even if these people...
Okay, the success that these people are getting is a byproduct of the company reaching and extending its power to make more money for itself.
Yes.
A product, like, if it's just a force of nature, like a tornado comes through, all of a sudden there's more jobs for rebuilding people's houses and stuff.
Yes.
So if you think about a company in that way, which I think that you're saying you think of them as, they're just a force of nature and that we should be thankful for whatever fallout comes from. I think that logic doesn't add up, because a lot of times the fallout that comes from these companies hurts more people than it helps. And the very rare situation that we're in right now is hard to be replicated and won't be, what's it called? Extrapolated. What's it called when you the continuation of something? We're not going to see more of that. This is a very unstable situation that is very lucky for a certain group of people in just this minute.
Yes. Well, while I do think that... I don't necessarily think companies are forces of nature. I think they're perpetuated by us giving them our money. And that's the beginning of end of it. If we stop buying their product, they'd stop existing. Period.
You know, maybe the radical left could be useful for one. If all that they did was, okay, we can't legislate that companies have to give money to fund public programs, right?
Yes.
What if all that the radical left did with their huge power and influence was to find companies that were shortchanging people and hurting people and just tell everyone not to purchase?
I think that's already been tried before. People
Why isn't that working?
Well, because people don't care. Because you, John on the street, and you and me, we don't care that these people are being taken advantage of in developing countries. We don't care that they're taking up all the water in small villages. We just care that we're getting the newest piece of technology. We care that we're getting the cheapest food. That's all we care about.
again, this incredibly negative perspective on the human race as
there are some
from
people. So you know how anything you do, you could do some things you could do just without thinking about it. Like maybe driving, you're not really constantly thinking about what the next move you're gonna be, right? You just kind of autopilot to work, and then you're there, you're at work for 10 minutes, and then you completely forgotten the drive because it was all autopilot.
right.
So if you actually make a conscious decision to think of what you're doing while you're driving, you might make some different choices. I think that's the same thing with how people who want to be more maybe energy efficient are. They could just autopilot and use inefficient technologies or whatever. Or they could make a mental thought and say, I want to do better. I want to build solar panels on my house. I think that's the same thing. Humans are on autopilot for a lot of things in their lives because you can't worry about everything. We don't have the time for it. We have to go to work and make money for our families. We don't have time to analyze what all these the companies are doing to other people. So because of that, we can't put more stress on ourselves to help stop bad guys because we don't have the capacity to do it.
Right.
I don't necessarily think people are evil. I think it's people don't have the ability to be compassionate all the time about everything.
What if we did though? I mean, that sounds kind of cliched and hackneyed, but that's the whole difference. But if I can be pretty bold for a second, because this is obviously not going to be correct in any capacity,
Okay.
but I think that the what we keep running into with this podcast, where we try to have intelligent discussion between two people that have different beliefs, is that there's one party in this country that believes that, hey, people are good, and if they're not, we can make them be that way through legislation. And there's another party that believes that, hey, people are people, and they're going to make mistakes. And we need to account for all of the people making mistakes all the time.
Okay.
Do you think that's a fair breakdown?
I think it's an oversimplification, but I think maybe that's a fair thing to say without analyzing it, if that makes sense.
Well, so if that's a fair thing to say, then why would you choose to believe, with all of the knowledge of human history, where we've seen ourselves come from something that was purely animalistic and instinctual, right?
Right.
The Jungle by I can't remember his name. I'm
Guns
so
N'
sorry.
Roses.
But no. But there's a book where it's talking about a factory and somebody falls into the meat and they just keep on grinding the meat.
Oh no.
This was before the Food and Drug Administration, right?
Okay.
So back then, this is my argument. I'm sure that there were people just like you that were saying, well, you can't legislate morality. They're just going to go to other countries and make the meat. If we try to stop them from putting rats and bits of human into our beef, they'll leave us.
Okay.
But wouldn't you argue that has not happened historically? Does that not undo a little bit of your argument? That the fact that we put regulations in place make people more aware of problems and better consumers?
I think there's an extreme to be said. While I do definitely agree with what you're saying. I think there's a oh, you know what? Actually, I figured it out.
Really?
So the FDA that you just said, this was before the FDA. The FDA doesn't prevent companies from manufacturing human meat. The FDA prevents the companies from selling it. Right? To us. Damn. So if we prevent companies from selling in the United States, That's a big deal. That's how it works. You don't tax their profits. You threaten their main source of income.
That's genius.
Oh my god. We prevent them from making profit for their people's safety. We did it. We solved it. Okay, stream over. It's done. Just stop. Just
so to recap, just in case that kind of flew by me, I need to have some clarification.
Uh-huh.
So you're saying that instead of like taking away pennies on the dollar from these companies,
yes,
that are behaving in morally reprehensible ways, instead we should just be stopping them from profiting.
Yes.
And then they would have to, their hands would be tied.
Yes. So the United States is filled with 300,000 people who make a disproportionate amount of money compared to third world countries. You're not going to make as much money opening a McDonald's in India as you are in Manhattan. So, because of that, if we cut off their main source of income by saying, hey, you're being a horrible person, stop being a horrible person, or else you're not going to be able to buy burgers, that does two things. One, it forces them to stop being horrible. But two, if they don't, then that affects us as consumers. So they're not forcing the company's hand, they're forcing ours. They're making it so we can't buy the meat that the man fell into because they think it's the right thing to do. So instead of forcing the companies, they're forcing the people. And is that a better thing?
I like that. But that kind of, I feel a little bit miffed that my argument for the left extremists being vocal about companies that are problematic, again, this seems like another position shift that we've had, where I'm saying that, hey, let the people's voice decide what companies are getting profit from us as a people. And you're saying that the government could intervene and say, you aren't allowed to profit.
Mm-hmm.
Are those not 6 of one, half a dozen of the other?
It's the exact same thing. Yes.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily saying that they should do this because I want the choice to support something. I don't think the government should be able to step in and say that I can't have the choice. However, is that the right thing to do? Because we have specific guidelines created by the FDA that have minimums in order to sell in the United States. So maybe if we get more minimums, but you can't really put that on paper for correcting like welfare issues. You maybe could say if you outsource to a developing country without paying them at least like 80% of what you would have paid someone here, then you're not allowed to sell here. That could be something, but
that could work.
However, does that really help the company? Does that help the people in India who now can't have a job because it's at almost as cost effective to just open it here?
I think that maybe if we were really lucky, it would be a baby step in the right direction that would lead to companies being more vocal about, hey, we don't outsource because we want your money, please. So I think that the more that's happening, or even if they're just playing a game with us, like you're saying, they don't have a moral compass, right?
Right.
Even if they're just playing a game, they're pantomiming. Is that not a step forward?
It's hard to say. Like I said with taking care of kids, it's easy to talk about, but if you're trying to really put it to practice, that's when it starts to fall apart.
Yeah.
Totally, entirely.
Let's read our comment.
Okay. Nova9 says, let's see. Would you be more comfortable with a forced livable wage for a single person if we also vary that from state to state by forcing the state government to implement a researched livable wage within, say, 10 years? Interesting. So
that's a good one.
If we actually analyze the livable wage state by state and then submitted a minimum wage, would I support it more? I don't think so. I don't think that really changes my stance on it at all.
Hard sell. I think that's a good idea because I'm in love with the idea of if you like the laws where you are, leave. and being able to leave reasonably and have different laws makes me really happy. But the second thing you said.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, the second thing you said, increased tariffs on all products
made
outside of America. Is that what that says?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's great. That's I think that's actually a Trumpian strategy.
It was used on China. Yes. The issue with that is that's again not it's preventing them from selling in the United States, right? So that's affecting at a consumer level directly. Now, I'm okay with certain tariffs on certain products to try and avoid people moving business elsewhere. Yeah, I'm totally fine with specific things like that. Mostly because there was a time, we didn't have an income tax until during the Civil War was the first time an income tax was put on the citizens of the United States. Before then, we still had a federal government, and it was funded through foreign trade entirely. However, that's fallen out. Now we have an income tax, and now we pay for the government at a national level. Because now it's because our national government has gotten so big that foreign trade can't pay for it anymore. Because we have so many different programs that we have to pay for, that foreign trade can't keep up.
Yeah.
I forgot what we were talking about right before this. I'm sorry.
Going back to the comment, the tariffs on all stuff made outside of America. I was listening to something about those tariffs the other day. And I think that what a lot of people misunderstand about tariffs, and I'm probably going to get this wrong because I'm amongst those people that misunderstand them, but there is a tariff that exists, right? It's just an arbitrary number that is an amount of money that has to change hands before you can get stuff across the border, right? Yes. So this tariff number, have you ever shopped for a house?
I've looked, sure.
So there's a thing called closing
costs,
that are essentially part of the deal. They're just a chunk of money that the bank is getting, kind of like a tariff. Now, who pays the closing costs depends on how the company or how the buyer of the house deals with the person selling the house or the people across the seas. So the tariff doesn't necessarily immediately impact our companies to punish them. Our companies could have a tariff on there and say, that's a big tariff. It'd be a shame if you weren't be able to get all your Samsung phone bits. And then someone else pays the tariff for them. It's negotiable, is what I'm saying. It's not an end all be all.
Yeah, so they could totally pass the tariff on to the consumer. They can make their phones cost $100 more per phone.
Exactly, and that's something that I don't think that most people understand. I don't know if Trump understands it because he acts like he's wielding it like a weapon.
Well, I'm sure he does, because if your product is now more expensive, less people will buy it. So it affects your bottom line no matter what. Then they have to ask if raising the cost is worth the move. Yes, that's exactly true. That's the whole thing. It's finding a correct balance in between where is it cost effective to stay or is it cost effective to go. And we've already jumped over that threshold with call centers in India. It's already too expensive in the United States, so it's cheaper in India.
Yeah, I'm gonna just go off on a little bit of a tangent, if I could. This kind of speaks to my view of things since I was very young, in regards to morality and how people behave around each other because we have to because of society.
Yep.
If you're doing things for the greater good in society, that's ideal.
Yes.
Right. If you're not, then society can come together and decide, hey, can you at least be neutral to these people that are not behaving right?
So if they're doing bad, at least stop doing bad. You don't have to do good.
Yeah, you don't have to do good, but you have to at least stop doing bad.
Okay.
And then the people that are left over who refuse that after that, if they're still saying no, then you can hit them in the face. And and that's how I kind of feel. That's why I get so tired of this discussion, because it's like this company, we're all tap dancing around the fact that these companies have all the power over us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes me so upset that we're negotiating with them like they're a force of nature. And I keep saying that, but I think that is true. We act like there's this untouchable reality that exists that's called the profit, and that nobody who's human is ever going to do the right thing over the profitable thing. And that makes me exhausted. I want to be able to challenge that, but I don't know how unless I become rich and start helping poor people myself. Because right now I'm only helping like 4 other people. I'll be honest.
Mm-hmm. Here, let me do this. Okay. So hold on.
Negotiating with terrorists is a comment that we got. That's the really large extrapolation of what we're talking about. You're absolutely.
So Amazon as a company in 2017 paid just under $1 billion in income tax. This company alone paid $1 billion.
They put $1 billion in the pot.
Okay. So imagine that $1 billion along with all of the jobs that they have in the United States moved to Mexico. Imagine that. Imagine that gap in financial stability. Not only for we'll say it's a sizable chunk in the income tax bracket, but it's a huge effect to all the people who work for Amazon, right? Because now they have to find new jobs. So that is a horrible thing to happen to the American economy. Yeah? In any capacity if they just left.
That would be a
That would be a what?
That would be a blow to our economy, yeah.
So that's the answer to your question. Why are we treating them why are we pussyfooting around them when we should be like, no, you work for us. Because we can't. Because
they are actually a force of nature.
Start a GoFundMe called "When I'm Rich, I'll Probably Help You." Probably. No way they don't even have to pay state taxes on their new headquarters. Lol. So it was a total myth that Amazon didn't pay any taxes in 2017. That was a huge fake thing that went around. They did pay significantly less than they probably were supposed to, but no, they did actually pay taxes. Yes.
Well,
they actually paid $1.18 billion in local, state, and international taxes in 2018.
Oh.
I don't know what you're saying, Nuva. No, Mott, they had states send offers. I'm not sure what that means.
Well, this is another extension of that same thing that troubles me about the conservative leaning arguments, is that they aren't as bad as we think. They're still doing bad, but the acceptable amount of badness is worth them staying with us for, which is an assumption that all that we need is the money, which is technically true, but I believe that we are going to transcend the need for worldly wealth someday. And I think that all that will be important is moral goodness and loving one another.
I hope so. And I hope we eventually get to that point. But
I think the only way to start trying to do that is to cut some scary corners and maybe have some powerful players leave our side because they don't want to be with us anymore. If they don't want to be moral, there's nothing we can do. They'll leave us, like you said. So maybe we're better off with. What if we were poor and moral instead of rich and immoral?
What's more important, though? Advancing the world with better technologies, delivery systems, and innovations, or making it so that nobody's hungry? What's more important?
Well, that's an existential crisis that
it really
we have there, isn't it? Yeah, because there's if you believe that the human race as an institution, I don't know what to call it, is important. If you believe that what we're doing and what we've been doing is important and you want us to keep doing it the way we've been doing it, then yeah, we need to have some money in technology and resources and studying ways to get off this planet. Oh, and we're out of time. I'm so sorry.
Well, so let's read the last thing that I said. One of the not to have to pay. One of the offers was not to have to pay any local taxes, and the state built their headquarters, or in the state, they're held. That they built their headquarters, if I remember. I don't know much about that.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he's right. He's right. There was a competition that was held for which state they want the headquarters to be in. And this one state said, hey, we'll do it and we'll sweeten the deal. And Amazon, I remember that. I'm going to have to look that up. That was on an episode that I liked that was about Amazon too.
That's about state legislators, sounds like to me. More so than national. They still definitely pay a lot of national taxes.
Yeah. They got off on a technicality. They're pretty good at that.
Well, that's it for Reviving Discourse episode 6?
6.
Yes. Okay. That was November 27th. We will be back next week, same time. Thank you all for coming, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys. God bless. We'll fix it soon. Don't worry.